It's my pleasure to welcome Brent Newberry, not only to our pulpit today, but also to this conversation. Brent is representing, you might say, our pastoral residents, as we normally have a residency reunion at this time. For those of you who don't know, Brent is an alumnus of our pastoral residency program called Pathways to Ministry. And Brent is now the pastor and has been for the last 5 years of the First Baptist Church in Worcester, Massachusetts. Brent, welcome back to Wilshire.
Thank you, George. It's such an honor. I'm delighted. I was messaging with Doug, and I told him I only wished it could be in person, so I'll wait another 25 years until my turn comes back around. So
Well, that actually raises the point that I want to begin with, and that is that, yes, we're having a virtual sermon from you. We're having a virtual residency reunion. We normally have that during this time in person. But I do want to ask how COVID has shaped your church's ministry during the past year.
yeah, so Massachusetts is a little bit different uh, context than it might be in, say, Texas, Georgia, some where some of our colleagues are serving, but. Um, for us, it was a really easy decision to close down in-person activities, worship services, anything in the building. Um, and so we're still at this point, just like Wilshire, we're still virtual for worship services. We've done a drive-in service,
Mhm.
and in the parking lot, and that will probably still be some options that one of the options we look at. But um, for us for us and it's almost the opposite, where shutting down was there was more anxiety about and fear in shutting down. And I gather from colleagues, maybe more in the South, that it's the anxiety now is about why aren't we reopening. And so either way, as a pastor, you're having to lead as non-anxiously as you can, as pastorally as you can.
Right.
And so for us, the decision has always been um, that we want to uh, align what we say we believe with our actions, and in this case, to love our neighbors, is to not hold these potential super spreader events. And so, as we continue on, the congregation wants to stay put as it is in order to remain safe. But I'm wanting to continue to remind them that part of our decision is that we're doing it to love those in our community and help be good members of the community of Worcester.
So, along the way, I'm sure that you've consulted with lots of people. We stay in touch, but I'm not sure that most people understand what a peer group community our pastoral resident alumni have together. Will you say a few words about the meaning of that to you personally?
Yeah, I've been in touch with you, over the course of 5 years, of course, but there are it's just natural. But within the residency and the alumni, uh, we just there are certain people you gravitate toward. Maybe it was your cohort or others you've connected with, and they become, your colleagues on the ground. And so I'm in several group chats, group messages, and we continue to run through these ideas. We've done some virtual hangouts with resident alums during the pandemic, and so just continuing to process, to vent, to pray, to support, all of that is a part of it, and it continues in some ways more deeply than it was even in the residency itself.
So, among the things that happens in our residency program is, yes, we teach you how to be a pastor generally, but we put a pretty high premium on preaching. So, I'm wondering if you can reflect back on your residency and then the years following, and say, what has been the impact of the residency on your preaching? Has it been more about the way you present in terms of style, or has it also included substance? What would be your reflections on that?
I I really appreciate that question, and I think so often about the residency in terms of being a better pastor and leader, and so to pause to think about it from a preaching perspective is really helpful. And I think about going, through seminary. you take preaching classes, but you don't, you preach a sermon or two, and maybe over the course of your seminary education, it's a handful of sermons and that's it. And for me, the residency, uh, it helped me find my preaching voice,
Mhm.
and it it helped me it helped me learn my voice, and it helped me learn how to listen to my voice. And so how I preached at Wilshire, I think, it was so much fun, and there was energy and such a big space with so many people that you know and love. Moving to Worcester, you know, the daunting aspect of preaching every week was lessened a bit because of the regular preaching that we got to do at Wilshire. But at some point, I had to remember that I've started to learn my voice there in at Wilshire, and so as I continue to pastor and grow, I have to keep listening to what the congregation needs and
Mm.
adapt. And so, as much as I want to preach in the exact same way as I did at Wilshire, and I think it's similar, I also find that it's shifted a bit in style, maybe in substance too, in that the congregation's different and they need certain background that maybe folks at Wilshire don't need because of certain biblical literacy, theological literacy differences, or whatever it may be. So, but I learned the nuances and the agility
Ah.
from the residency.
Pastoral agility is a phrase that we've used quite a lot during the years, and certainly during COVID and in this time over the course of the past year with Black Lives Matter and racial justice protests and the like. And then we had this March on the Capitol on January 6th as well, ironically on Epiphany, the day of Epiphany. So when you think about pastoral agility, that leads to my last question, I suppose, and that is to say, Brenton, in the midst of this time, we know that we are the pastors of our own particular congregations, but part of the duty of that is also to locate it within our communities and the larger culture, and to help people understand maybe something about what spiritually we think is going on. So, where are you finding hope for the church during these difficult and dark days? And do you have a sense of where the Spirit might be leading us?
Mm, no. Short answer, I don't know. I find hope in some of the work that we as a congregation specifically have done in trying to learn more about our own various levels of privilege and benefit and power and location, proximity in society, and so doing some of that work um, has given me hope that there are people who are at all phases of their life, all across the spectrum, and they are wanting to learn more. And it's partly because of the events that we've seen over the last, well, since the summer. Um, I think something like the Capitol attack, for white Christians, especially who are moderate progressive Christians who are white, um, it was a real assault. It was a real startling moment. And I think what helps ground me beyond prayer, sincerely prayer and um, colleagues, is to look at what my Black colleagues and clergy colleagues are doing, what they're saying, and much of it is not any different than what they've been saying all along. And that kind of grounds me and centers me and reminds me that this might be new for many of us, because of those various layers of benefits and privileges. But this is just another manifestation of an underlying problem that we need to be a part of solving. And by listening to some of those voices who've been saying it all along, that grounds me and it gives me hope, because I think people are starting to listen differently than they had been.
I think people are starting to listen too, and I'm grateful that we get to do this work together. And I know your colleagues are proud of you, and we are as well. And we look forward to hearing you preach this Sunday.
Yeah, thank you, George, and thank you to Wilshire for the support over all the years.
Absolutely.